I mean, it could be about 2 years before we start construction and about 3 years to finish it. So you're looking at 5 years. I mean, yeah, from now, if it were approved, before the residents there.
And
our goal is to start immediately. We have a short-term lease tenant there.
Okay. And Mr. Anderson, do you have any insight on where we are with the Google Master Plan?
Well, you know, the zoning administrator, planning manager may know a little more than me, but as far as I know, the Google Master Plan is a master plan, and so that's kind of a preliminary stage earlier than this entitlement stage that this project is actually seeking right now. So once Google gets the master plan, they would still need to come back in and get approvals for individual buildings in the project. So I would imagine if, you know, buildings take the same amount of time, they might be a year or two behind this project.
Yeah, I can add a little bit of information to that. So yeah, the master plan is the first step, and then I think Google has 3 phases planned to pull the actual permits for the buildings within those phases. And so, and then that would be done in a 20-year time horizon, which is the same as would be their requested development, or sorry, DA timeline.
Yeah, that was, you know, just a concern that, you know, we have these wonderful apartments available, you know, within 5 years or so when Google's 20 years out. So, you know, you just have a concern that you're going to have people living out, you know, kind of beyond service and amenities areas, and that, you know, I'm wondering if that would make it less appealing from people who would like to, you know, live there. So that's just a concern that I had. Thanks.
Commissioner Dempsey, your hand's still up. Did you have another question? Okay. Other questions from other commissioners? Commissioner Hammeier.
Yeah, this one might be more for Hexagon, but I'm wondering, I'm looking at the parking study, because of the proximity to light rail, are there any estimates or projections that the applicant made about what percentage or how you're anticipating future residents to use light rail? I know that's hard. Everyone's trying to figure out how to drive at PTA ridership, but it just seems like there must have been some kind of analysis, at least to get to the reduced parking ratio, if you can share.
Gary's around. Gary, are you able to opine on that?
Yeah, Gary Black probably needs to be admitted.
Okay, working on that.
Thank you.
Okay, Gary, you've been added to the panelist group.
Okay, I see myself. Thank you very much. I'm not aware of data that indicates how many people that live near a light rail station would use the light rail. Typical transit, what we call mode split percentages that we see in the county are in transit-rich areas. Like, I think we can define this as a fairly transit-rich area. I think we could see a 5 to 10% of the trips being made on transit. Our parking analysis looked at existing apartment developments that are near light rail stations. We didn't survey the residents to ask them whether they're using light rail or not, but what we did is we counted the number of cars that are parked there during peak times, and then we related that to the number of units. and we came up with ratios based on that to convince ourselves that the number of parking spaces provided here would be adequate. So that's part of the picture, but exactly to answer your question of how many might ride light rail, we as I said, we don't have any surveys of that.
Thank you.
Questions from other commissioners? Commissioner Yin.
Hi, thanks. Just on the topic of parking, I was just wondering from staff, will there be street parking allowed? Let's say this is the first one up and the residents are there because it's pretty much office park. I would imagine that there's street parking available for some of the residents in the interim while everything else is being built out, potentially. And that could ease any potential need for extra parking. And is there then a program in place as things get built out that street parking will change over time? And, you know, things just get moderated over time as things get built out.
Yeah, so the precise plan does have, and I'm just looking this up right now. I'll have it in just a second. I believe the precise plan has two different kind of future visions for Maud and Logue Avenues. One of them, more near term, does include street parking. The other one, longer term, includes street parking on both sides of the street. The other one, longer term, would only have street parking on one side of the street. The goal here is to really kind of help use the parking constraint to really limit the viability of vehicle use over the long term, and to provide that additional street space for a higher diversity of modes, bicycles and larger pedestrian areas and things as the precise plan built out.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Schmeezing?
Yes, I saw in this report that there was one neighborhood meeting and only one person showed up and was generally supportive. Has the applicant received any more communication from neighbors outside of that meeting via email or aware of anything else?
You know, we've had several community interest group meetings. They're listed on our presentation. I can, you know, who's been helping us a lot with organizing these meetings is Kathy Thibodeau, and I don't know if you can let her in, but we've spoken to at least half a dozen different community groups. I don't know if she's available.
I think yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Kathy.
I don't see myself yet, so do you see
I
me?
hear you. I hear you.
Well, I don't need to look at myself. Well, as mentioned, there was a community meeting on April 1st, but in addition to that, we reached out to the Wagon Wheel Neighborhood Association, which is the closest neighborhood group, and I think that the chair of that group may be on tonight. And they, I don't want to speak for them, but we had a very nice meeting with them and good discussion and good interchange. We've also received endorsements from Mountain View Coalition for Sustainable Planning, Mountain View Chamber of Commerce, Mountain View YIMBY, Silicon Valley at Home, Silicon Valley Leadership Group, the Bay Area Council, the Campaign for Balanced Mountain View. So there you have it. I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah, I'm more just, I think, looking at the the letter we got from Wagon Wheel, it looks like there is some interest, right? They're excited about the walkability of the area and how open it is to the public, and including more park-like amenities. So I just want to see if you've had any more ideas on ways to address feedback you've gotten from the community, include more of those park lake features mentioned, anything like that.
I mean,
Go ahead.
I can tell you, and Brian and Armand could, we have a pretty tight site. It's very limited, and we basically have a perimeter, an open perimeter around it, publicly accessible perimeter around it for the public. Part of it is EVA. It's actually much larger than should have been on the north side. It's also fairly generous because of that ped bike path and UVA access. So really to accommodate this kind of density on a 2.5 acre site, we've done the best we can as far as open space. And we have some terraces in addition to the central courtyard. But, there's only so much blood we can squeeze out of this turnip.
I just want to add metrics to that, to what Perry and Brian mentioned. So we really try to just maximize the open space on the site, and also program just, with the increase the programmed areas as much as possible, with adding micro plazas at the northeast corner, EVA path with all these programs as mentioned, and the paseo on the south, and also setbacking on the Logue side to just widen up the sidewalk and just adding as much as planters and green spaces with sittings. So it's basically just all 4 sides of the project walkable and has amenities for the public and residents to use.
Great. Yeah, I really appreciate all the effort that went into making it as green as possible. My other question, and this is staff and developer potentially. I have mentioned before on this on APC, I'm a bike commuter, and I'm always thinking about how accessible areas are by different bikes. And I know the Wagon Wheel letter and just my general kind of, as I visited the area of the site, I think it's great how accessible the property is by bike and all of the work you guys are putting into encouraging biking. But there are a couple areas where it's maybe not so bike friendly around the area, and was wondering maybe if staff could comment on kind of what the timeline is in terms of any plans for bike paths in East Wisman, or what that might look like, and if developers have any thoughts on that as well.
I know the Public Works person on this project, Renee Gunn, is in the audience. She might be able to respond to projects that may be in the pipeline in terms of public improvements in the area. Certainly the project is proposing to provide funds, I believe, as public benefit. Correct me if I'm wrong, Perry.
$1.5 million. Yeah.
And those funds could certainly be funneled towards the types of multimodal mobility improvements that you're talking about.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Renee Gunn. I'm a senior civil engineer in Public Works. We do have plans for bike paths and bike lanes on all of the streets surrounding this. The CIP program is still developing those plans. So I would suggest that we look into the 5-year CIP that's coming to council soon to see where those are in the schedule. I do not know off the top of my head. I will say one thing we do promote is we do whole streets at a time. So like this project in particular will not be painting the bike lane just in front of their project. We would like to do Logue all as one when we come to that project.
That is all my questions.
Commissioner Yin, you got another question?
Yes, a quick one. I know you guys are still, the designers are still working out a lot of details, and but I did notice one, I don't know if it's an inconsistency, but on the site plan, there's a 3'8" ADA path along Logue, and then in other drawings it says it's a 7-foot sidewalk. I was just curious which one is the one you're going to go with at the end, or if there's a difference, and if that means something else than what I think.
Sure. ADA path is the building code requirement, which is 44 inches for the ADA to be able to just use the sidewalk. But the width of the sidewalk is actually 7 feet. So it's the building code requirement should show that there is still enough width along the sides of the project for the wheelchairs to be able to access to the building.
Okay, you
Just a dimension, yes, it's
Got
just a dimension showing we're covering, we got it covered, so.
Got it. Okay. Oh, sorry. And one last question about the land to the north. You guys had mentioned that you guys are doing half of the land for the bike and pedestrian overpassing will be from you, and the other will be from Google. I know it isn't designed yet, but is that considered part of the open space, or is that just land that's just going to go straight to the city? How's that working out?
Part of that open space is calced, I think, right now and included in our calculations, right, Armand?
No, we haven't counted that towards the open space that we are providing, not on the north side.
Not on the north, not north, the part that's on our property though is.
Right, yes.
Oh, that's shown in the site plan.
Correct.
Okay, not the part that's beyond that will be. And do you know what's going to happen at the ground level when that overpass goes by? Do you know if it's, ramping down, where the ramp is going to occur? We're not there yet.
We did some preliminary sketches just to make sure that there was enough space to do a ramp and overpass, but it's really, really early days on that.
Yeah, I think. Okay, thank you.
Couple questions, I guess, first for Mr. Black and then for the applicant. In the parking study, you included, looks like it's a total of 8 properties that you have evaluated, and 2 of those, the 2 that have the lowest parking demand per unit, the Madera property in Mountain View and the Avalon at Cahill Park in San Jose, are not just next to VTA sites, but they are at sites that address both VTA and Caltrain. The Mountain View station is not just VTA and Caltrain, but also the shuttles that go over to North Bayshore. And the Avalon at Cahill Park is next to Dearden Station in San Jose, which is the single largest public transit center in the entire city of San Jose, and probably in the Bay Area, the way other things are laid out. So the parking demand per unit was particularly low relative to those 2 versus the others, and they were some of the ones lower on the parking demand for bedroom, which concerns me because the VTA station doesn't fall into that category. Can you comment on why you included transit sites that have so much more potential public transit in them than this site will ever have?
Yes, we wanted to get, to provide the data for everyone to look at and to interpret as you have, Chair Cranston. We actually have parking counts at 24 apartment complexes, and we put only 6 of them in here. The one in San Jose near the Cahill station, that's not our study. That's from the Green Trips database, which is a Bay Area-wide kind of service that people can access to try to answer questions about parking and so forth. So we thought that they were fairly representative of apartments near transit. We certainly agree with you that Caltrain tends to be more popular than the light rail service. However, even if we were to drop those out and just create the average without those, the average would still be well within the number of parking spaces that are being proposed for this particular project. We also looked at the ITE parking generation manual, which you may be familiar with. That includes all types of apartments, whether they're near transit or not. And the ratio that that is published in that reference is almost identical to the ratio that we got in our surveys from those 6 properties that you're looking at. So we've kind of come at this from a lot of different angles to satisfy ourselves that the parking would be adequate.
And I don't know whether this is a question for you or for staff. I'd ask the question as to why parking demand for bedroom was chosen over parking demand per unit. These particular, the project is being proposed as a high percentage of, a much higher percentage of one and studio relative to most. So it just, parking demand per bedroom and parking demand per unit seems like they'd be almost the same thing. So can you comment on why you believe one is better than the other?
Well, I don't know if staff wants to jump in on that one, but from my perspective, if you look at parking demand per unit, there's always the question of what types of units are being surveyed for that data, whether that includes a lot of studios and 1 bedrooms or whether there's 2 and 3 bedrooms in the mix. And so that always comes up as a question. But if you actually express your ratio per bedroom rather than per unit, and you take that uncertainty out of the equation. And so everything's on the level field because it's per bedroom. And that's kind of becoming the industry standard. I know that typically a lot of parking ratios in cities are based on per unit, but probably half the cities that we look at, the parking ratio is based on the number of bedrooms, not on the number of units. And the ITE parking generation manual that I mentioned as well, that the ratios in there are also based on the number of bedrooms and not the number of units.
Yeah, and I can go ahead and build on that. Part of the response to the written questions was gave an example of what is the estimated parking demand for a 3-bedroom unit versus a 1-bedroom unit. They could be the same size unit, but it typically is a better estimation of the number of cars per unit based on the number of bedrooms, because those units could be the same size, but generally there's more people and therefore cars per bedroom. And it also is consistent with the city's model parking standard that we use for the higher density of residential projects, which is based on spaces per unit, and is 1 space for studio and 1 bedroom, and 2 spaces for 2 bedroom and above.
So I guess one of the questions that Commissioner Capullas asked was proximity to services. Was that taken into account in this? Because it's there are no services near this property. There's no grocery stores. There's no coffee shops. There's no dry cleaners, salons, anything nearby. And I guess I'm trying to understand how the fact that something that's in the middle of this area is going to behave. If you look at both the demand per unit and demand per bedroom, they're more similar to the Avalon project and Madera, but they're not near transit. And I'm still not clear on how we reconcile the very low number of parking spaces with the location for, and the lack of, it just seems like people would need to get into a car. And I'm still struggling with how to reconcile that. Do you have a great answer for me, or nope, sounds okay.
Well, mobility is, I'll just jump in here. Mobility technologies and mobility, services are changing. certainly we're seeing the rise of Uber and Lyft and a lot of these other companies that are providing that type of transportation without car ownership. And then in addition, we part of the precise plan goal is to not encourage this huge investment in parking infrastructure when in the long term the community is going to be much more fine-grained, have much more better access to those services that you're talking about and the jobs. And the fact that this is so close to light rail itself is an ecosystem of a diversity of uses. So you may not be able to find a dry cleaner at this light rail stop, but you can probably find a dry cleaner at a nearby light rail stop.
Then my other questions are more from the developer. I actually went out and looked at that little moving car thing that you're proposing for the ground floor. It's pretty cool. Is there space to do any more of those, or is it limited to the? I think you've got it on the bottom floor. Is there any top opportunity to potentially add a little bit more of that to improve the ratio a little bit, or are you using 100% of the space? Comments?
Go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say that the current plan is to have traditional parking, not a mechanized parking system.
We added in the original version. We added another level of parking that eliminated those.
Parking count didn't change though. So now that we feel more comfortable with the delivery of a traditional parking model within this building with the same number of stalls.
Oh, okay. So the study assumed it would be there, changed it since then to not have it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then the last question on this before I give up on that is parking assigned, or is it will people have to buy their basically rent their spaces in order to I'm drawing a blank on the right term for it.
Bundled or unbundled?
Unbundled.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I believe the parking study said it should be unbundled, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Or no, it's unbundled, so it's not assigned.
It's not assigned.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Vice Chair Lowe, you have another question?
Thank you, Chair. I have a couple of additional questions for mainly the applicant, but maybe for the staffs too. Has to do with some of the landscape features that are proposed in the project. I was wondering, in the question I submitted to staff, I did ask about recycled water. I understand there's no recycled water right now, but in the future, there may be. And I wanted to make sure, so I wanted to ask whether when you select the plants, and especially trees, because they're going to be there for a long time, hopefully, that you're selecting those species that can tolerate recycled water, because they usually have higher sodium level.
I don't know if our landscape architect is available, James Stockham, but most of the, but generally the palette nowadays for most projects in the area are drought resistant plants that can tolerate that, but I'll let James speak to that.
James is on. He looks like he's logging in, or he's I think you're still muted, James.
James, you're on mute.
There
oh, there it comes. Yeah, absolutely. As Perry noted, you hardly can propose a plant palette that doesn't satisfy those parameters, and especially in Mountain View, as most areas are receiving the sort of future recycled water service. So we have selected, there's no redwoods, for instance, that would be susceptible to that sort of high salinity water. So yeah, we've taken that into consideration.
Great. A follow-up question is, how much consideration have you taken when you select the plants again to include native species? As you may know, the Council's strategic priorities include improving ecosystem and biodiversity. So we'd love to see more native species that are included on the palette.
And James, why don't you take that? Why don't you talk a little bit about the difference between native and adaptive native? Because I think it would be helpful just to give an overview of that.
Sure. That's a great question. I think like your neighbors in Palo Alto require a certain number of percentage of native plants on the project. So we're used to that, building plant palettes that accommodate California natives. We know it's great for habitat, and we do understand there are limitations in the look of California natives. So it's good to have a blend of sort of regionally adapted plants to our water levels and interspersed, so you don't have sort of barren landscape when the time of the year that California natives are sort of dormant. So there's a considerate blend. There's 25% native trees on the project so far, and we'll strive to get as many little natives in the landscape understory as well.
Do you have a sense for the shrubs and understory, what percentage of native you're including right now?
We haven't built the understory planting palette yet.
Okay.
But I could imagine it is in somewhere in the 25% range as well, as the trees.
Okay. One more question has to do with the trees that you're proposing in the central courtyard as well as roof decks. I'm assuming there are some small trees that will be planted in containers. Is that correct?
Yeah, a combination of containers and built planters.
Okay. So when you calculate the tree canopy, projected into future years, I would assume if the trees are in containers or planters, you're not projecting them to grow into full tree canopy potential.
That's true. And in those cases, in those scenarios where they'd be planted in containers and limited root volume, and due to the weight of what they're on themselves, we would only propose medium-sized trees. It would only get up to a smaller diameter.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you.
Looks like we're done with questions. Next section, we move to public comment. So open up for the public on the line like to provide comment on this item. If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or press *6 on your phone. Phone users can mute and unmute themselves with *6. The PC clerk will start the timer and let you know when your time is up. Any people who would like to speak on this item?
Yeah, Chair Cranston. Currently, there are two attendees with their hands raised. One of the individuals with a 415 area code number had their hand raised first and has had their hand raised for a while. So I'm going to go ahead and allow them to talk if that's okay with you.
Yes, that'd be great. Thanks.
Okay. And then you are now allowed to talk. If you could just give me one moment so I can configure the timer and share my screen.
First, and had their hand raised for a while, so I'm going to go ahead and allow them to talk if that's okay with you. You're on mute, Mr. Patel. We're now allowed to talk. If you could just give me one moment so I can configure the timer.
Okay. I'm not saying anything. The individual should be able to speak right now.
Okay.
I think I can. Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Matt Regan. I'm calling on behalf of the Bay Area Council. an employer-sponsored public policy organization representing about 350 of the region's largest employers. And we are calling in strong support of the project. We are looking at 408 new apartments, 62. Can you hear me? Yep, sorry, 62 below market rate and $28 million in community benefits, bike parking, electric vehicle charging. This project ticks all the boxes in terms of economic, environmental, and equity, and we strongly support it and urge that you move it forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Yes, I believe Kat Wortham is next, and I'm going to allow them to talk as well.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. So good evening, Chair and Honorable Commissioners. My name is Kat Wortham, and I'm the Director of Housing and Health Policy at the Silicon Valley Leadership Group. I'm here tonight to speak in support of 400 Logue. The leadership group was actively engaged in the creation of the East Wisdom Precise Plan that was adopted a couple of years ago. So we actively advocated for the inclusion of housing in the plan, as this neighborhood is very jobs rich. We are excited that if approved, 400 Logue would be one of the first housing developments in the plan area and would really have the capability to transform the area into a true neighborhood. We are pleased to see on-site affordable housing, as we heard tonight from both Perry, the developer, and as I think we are all well aware of, that it's very difficult to make affordable housing pencil these days. And then finally, we're excited to see a number of TDM measures proposed, including the fact that you're just 1,000 feet from VTA light rail and there's ample bike storage and a bike repair station on site. I think we all know these measures are really great for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, as well as just promoting a healthy lifestyle for future residents. With that, I'll yield my time and thank you for the consideration of our comments.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Okay, I believe Emily Ann Ramos is the next person with their hands raised, and I'm going to allow them to talk now.
Hello, my name is Emily Ann Ramos. I'm speaking on behalf of Mountain View EMB. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Just making sure the timer didn't go on. But I'm here on behalf of Mountain View EMB in support of this project. It's 408 proposed new units, taking over office space in an area that's close to jobs and transit. That's pretty good. All right. Thank you so much for your time. Please support this project.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Chair Cranston, I do not see any more speakers any of the attendees who wish to speak.
Okay. Right, then we'll bring it back to the commission for deliberation.
I apologize. There was an individual, I believe Bill Lambert had their hand raised. Bill, I'm going to allow you to talk if you still would like to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Chair Cranston and Commissioners. I have a very thoughtful and informative discussion. I'm going to, rather than make a comment, I'm going to ask a question, but I think you'll get the point. And I know you can't answer it now, but I'll follow up with the commissioners later. I was curious about one of the slides that had stated roughly there was $25 million attributed to park space and parking and other public benefits. And I sort of wanted to get a clarification of what that means and specifically how park space is being sort of factored into this development project. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Any other members of the public would like to speak? Please raise your hand. Ms. Ramos, I think you're done. Mr. Lambert has already spoken. Are there any other members of the public? No? Okay. Then we'll bring it back to the commission for deliberation. So, who would like to start off? Commissioner Schmeezing. You're still on mute.
Thank you. I will be supporting this project. I, in general, thought the plans were very well done. I really like the green spaces, the walkability, the bikeability, the inclusion of those 15% BMR units, and I particularly was excited to see some of those moderate income units proposed, given the struggle that we have with moderate income housing in this city. There's a lot of aspects I like to this project, and I remember one of the first projects that I sat on the EPC was another residential unit within East Wisman, so I am hopeful that as there becomes a critical mass of people living in that area, it will attract those amenities like a grocery store, like just different shops and all of that. I remember the developer there was saying, I think that 5,000 people need to live in an area before a grocery store is attracted or something like that. So I am hopeful that as more housing comes into this area, those amenities will follow. Based on my questions, the one thought I had would be to look, I'm not sure if I'm getting this right, but the 5-year CIP with those bike paths, I just might encourage council to look at what the timing is in terms of when this development project is looking at being completed and where those bike paths surrounding this project are falling within that 5-year plan, and see if they can't coincide so that people who do desire to bike in this area have that option to do so safely within and outside of the complex. And that is all. Those are all my thoughts. Thanks.
Commissioner Capellas.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a good example of trying to make the best out of a small piece of property, but it's close to transit, and I'm also definitely in support of it. I think it's a good balance, and I too am happy that they address the middle income area. We desperately need to continue to work toward reaching goals in that area. I also feel like we should give consideration of maybe having some of the Google routes include this area. So if people are trying to live without a car, instead of depending on Uber and Lyft and this sort of thing, that there might be a shuttle in the area that would allow them to transport themselves, into areas where they can go to the grocery store and get other amenities, at least until we see other areas being developed where those services will be provided. So I think this is an excellent start, and definitely see them following the East Wisman precise plan, and appreciate that, and will be in support of this project. So thank you very much for staff and all the work from Miramar, because I think this is certainly a good model of setting us in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Haymark.
Thank you. Like Commissioner Capriles and Commissioner Schmeezing, I want to applaud the developers' efforts. I think this is a nice near-term effort to realize the East Wisman precise plan and start us down that path toward an integrated community. Particularly appreciate the on-site BMR and the proximity to transit without displacement. I don't know that any one developer or project can help boost VTA ridership, but I really think that that's going to be so critical to the success of this area. And so appreciate the thoughtfulness that went into the amenities to support bike and pedestrian access, and try and go as car light as we can while this vision is realized.
Vice Chair Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. I too will be supporting this project, and I echo what others have said so far. definitely appreciate all the hard work that have gone into it. I think since this will be one of the first projects, being implemented at the East Westman Precise Plan. By the way, I think the Precise Plan is excellent, and I hope having that plan in place has made the process for this project a little easier. If we didn't have the plan. I did want to see if the applicant or staff would like to respond to Mr. Lambert's question about parks and green spaces.
Mr. Anderson or Ms. Williams, or we can respond outside of the meeting. I think he was open to that.
So I think in general the question, if I'm remembering correctly, was kind of what is the project's contribution to parks through payment of the fee. Yeah. So with residential projects, there's the option to dedicate land specifically for a park on site, or the option to pay park in lieu fees. And those fees would go towards the acquisition and development of other parks within the same park planning area. And this project will be paying park in lieu fees on a per unit basis to go towards parks within this park planning area.
Thank you. Commissioner Dempsey.
Thank you. So I don't want to be repetitive with what my colleagues have already said, because I agree with it. I think this is an easy project to like. It checks all the boxes for me, and I'm really glad that there won't be any displacement. It's nice to see us, putting some new units up on the scoreboard. So I'll be supporting it today, and bravo to the developers for the good job they did on this, and for staff.
Thank you. Commissioner Yin.
Yes, I don't want to go into everything everybody else has said. There are a lot of exciting things about this project. I agree with Vice Chair Lowe that I think having the Precise Plan in place really helped make this site very walkable and bikeable, having that holistic view. And I think the design of the building is subdued, but especially the ground floor plane. I like what they did with the massing and sort of the breakthroughs. I understand that there's a little bit of that, the parking question. I'm hoping that because it is the first, that there is some on-street parking available in the beginning. And as things get built out, we'll have other ways to manage the parking. Hopefully VTA truly is going to maintain and maybe increase its ridership. As Commissioner Haymeyer mentioned, it is key to the success of this particular project and others that will be built in the area. I'm wondering also if maybe if we find that more parking is needed, that we can reach out, or the developer can reach out to neighboring office buildings and maybe work out something with them to use their empty parking lots at night to park for residents in the evening. So that might be an idea. It is a little bit of a shame. When I walked around, there's a very nice park feel to the area, and I know a lot of these major mature trees have to get chopped down. Parking garages just can't sustain very large trees, underground parking. And I'm hoping that the street trees and all the plantings around, that there will be trees that not only grow fast, but there are some that will also grow to be very large, and that there's enough room for those to grow. All in all, pretty excited about this. There are no neighbors that we have to really worry about mediating heights or anything like that. And I do look forward to things getting built out in time. So I am approving of the project. Thank you.
We've heard from most folks. In general, I like the project. I'm one of the things I guess is more of a a comment for staff. One of the changes that's been made from the first time we saw it was moving the property away from the VTA light rail and moving it south on the property. One of the things that I do like about the precise plan is it does anticipate these connections as things are built out. So really encouraging potential applicants to come in ahead of time and say, hey, look, don't make us go through this twice. You need to take into account these pathways. And I think the developers listen to your feedback, just put that in, the connection, the ability to link up with the Google space next to it for a potential overpass is exactly what we're looking for. It's part of what the precise plan had in it. That expanding the path along the VTA light rail is exactly what we're looking for. So if we can somehow convey the message to potential developers that, hey, you're going to get a much better response when you do this the first time than having to come back a second time on these things. So I like those changes. So thank you to the applicant for that. Regarding the parking, I guess my feeling is that the parking estimate between now and kind of the end state of the precise plan, the end state, the parking level is probably okay. What I'm worried about is until there are amenities nearby, there are things to go to, that in fact that the estimate of the parking during the transition time when people will have to drive to grocery stores will not be sufficient. So I don't know that that's, in my mind, that's not sufficient for me to say no to this, but I do think staff needs to kind of think about whether it's on-street parking like Commissioner Yin's talking about. I'd hate to take away the bike spaces that Commissioner Schmeezing would like to have, but it does feel to me like between when the project goes live and when other stuff is built out around it, that there probably will be a parking deficit that's not anticipated simply because there's not other things around it to connect to it yet. And it's not a reason for me to, I like the project otherwise. The changes in design are better. In general, I'm just worried about that period until there's more around it that we're not allowing for the time in between. I don't know if that's not a issue that the developer can necessarily address, but it's a question for staff as to are there things that could be done in the meantime. So I will be supporting the project, and I think overall it's a good project, and I think I'd like to see it move ahead. So unless there's any other discussion, Clerk Abbott-Halaby, can you call the roll, please? I'm sorry, I need a motion. Neto, can you pull the items up, and then I'll ask for a motion from somebody from the floor. Looks like Commissioner Capolis is open to that. So, Commissioner Capolis.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to recommend from the EPC that the City Council approve the initial study of environmental significance for the 400 Logue Avenue residential project pursuant to Section 15168 of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, and find the project within the scope of the East Wisman Precise Plan Final Environmental Impact Report, Exhibit 1 to the EPC staff report, and recommend to the City Council adopt a resolution approving a planned community permit and development review permit for a new 8-story, 408-unit residential development, a 36,000 square foot transfer of development rights, and a heritage tree removal permit to remove 5 heritage trees located at 400 Logue Avenue, to be read in title only, further reading waived. Exhibit 2 to the EPC staff report.
And Commissioner Haymeyer?
I'd like to second the motion.
Okay.
Also clarifying, it is Logue. I've heard it pronounced many ways tonight, so.
Mr. Abbott-Halaby, can you call the roll, please, for the vote?
Yes, sir. Commissioner Haymeyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Dempsey?
Aye.
Commissioner Schmeezing,
Aye.
Commissioner Yin,
Aye.
Commissioner Capriles,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lowe,
Aye.
Chair Cranston.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, everyone. So we will move on to item number 6 in the agenda, which is Commission staff announcements, updates, requests. No action will be taken on any item during this section. Please raise hand if you'd like to speak at this time. I see Commissioner Schmeezing.
I did already reach out to Chair Cranston and Mark about this, but I unfortunately, unless another meeting gets scheduled between now and the summer recess, this will be my last EPC meeting. I'm getting married this fall, and I'm not sure if we'll be able to rent in Mountain View or not, basically, is the situation, just depending on where we can get the best price. And I didn't want to leave the EPC one commissioner short at like kind of a last minute notice, so I figured I would bow out before the summer so the council has ample time to find someone to fill in. But if we do end up in Mountain View, I may try and reapply. It's been just a really wonderful experience, from having to ask what zoning was in my interview to just getting to serve alongside all of you and learn so much about our city and development and all of the different considerations that go into that, and how hard everyone works to make our city what it is. And it's just given me a new appreciation for where I grew up. So I'm just really grateful for all of you and for the time on the EPC. And it's sad to go early. But if I do end up in Mountain View, I hope to stay involved in our city and community.
Thank you. Commissioner Capriles?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Please move into Mountain View, because we need you.
It's been fun working with you, Allie.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations. And we're really hoping you stay in Mountain View. You've been a great asset. We really enjoy having you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, ditto.
Congratulations. I hope we get you back.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Congratulations. We're very happy for you. And I really appreciated having you as a colleague and asking such great questions. I mean, particularly tonight, you're always getting us to think. You're picking up former Commissioners Barbaros and Mansell and really getting us to think about mobility on bicycles and how things fit together. So we hope you continue to participate in other ways.
You started off your comment with, unfortunately, congratulations, you're getting married. I mean, that's good news. That's not unfortunate. That's good news. So really, your future husband all the very best. And like I said in my email, I think we all want to make Mountain View a place where people like you are able to feel comfortable that you can move through the phases of your life, and Mountain View can still be your home. And we may not be there yet, but we're going to try. And if you do decide to be able to stay, we'd love to have you stay involved, because I think you've been a great addition to the UPC.
Oh, thank you guys.
Yeah, and I'll just add again, deep heartfelt thanks for your contributions and for all the work that you've put into this. I know it's often a thankless job, and I just hope that me, among the rest of your peers here, can add our thanks for all the attention and focus and time that this takes. And it really is a rare breed of people at your stage in life, young people getting involved and being committed to improving your community. And it's why it's first off, it's a huge, it shows that you're, the quality of you as a person, right? That you are getting involved at this stage in your life when other people are thinking about other things and starting their careers and all of these things. But also having this viewpoint on the commission is so vitally important. And so we are really, really grateful for the time that you've had here, and really do hope that you can find your way back. So thanks again.
Thank you guys. It means a lot.
Thank you. So Eric, any announcements on our next meetings? Are we like is this the last meeting before the summer? Or are there other items?
It's certainly looking like it. Yeah, we've definitely canceled June 2nd. We so far have nothing that we are planning for the June 16th meeting. So I think we can, with 99% confidence at this point, say have a very happy summer at the end of this meeting, and enjoy yourselves and rest and relax, and hopefully the world that we come back to is a little more open in the fall. I do want to highlight some of the upcoming fall items. We are going to have a study session regarding the housing element, which we're kicking off now. We're probably going to have a study session regarding the North Bay Shore Master Plan, Google Master Plan. We're probably going to have a public hearing for North Bay Shore Bonus FAR and the Gateway Master Plan, as well as the TDR, the LASD TDR projects in the San Antonio Center, the one on the corner of California and San Antonio. Likely have a public hearing for that, as well as the 555 Middlefield project. So those are all exciting things to look forward to in the fall. I also want to highlight that the Council Strategic Roadmap is going to be up for review and adoption in June 8th and 22nd at Council. So that's really, great to watch, to see kind of the direction that Council wants to go over the next 3 to 5 years. So we are going to be getting our marching orders from that, and we'll have a conversation about our work plan in the fall as well, based on the Council Strategic Roadmap. So those are my announcements.
Any other announcements from folks? I guess I don't know whether this is. I guess it's kind of a request. And given that council's already kind of setting their plans, I am troubled by the Summerhill cancellation of their project, or the suspending their project, the feedback from Google on the financial viability of the 20% inclusionary, and even the feedback today on the BMR rate. I know a lot of work was done on the latest phase of the BMR ordinance, and there was economic analysis done to assist with that. But it seems I don't know whether what we're hearing is COVID side effect, or whether maybe that economic analysis miss something. And so I'm concerned that if we stop seeing projects, and then everybody wants to err on the side of not inclusionary, that kind of defeats what we were hoping to get. And so I guess it's a question for staff. I don't know whether other commissioners have the same question, but it just seems like the inclusionary number is causing more consternation than I think I certainly expected to hear after we went through that process. And so I don't know if things have changed or not. I don't know if other commissioners have the same concern, but I guess it'd be a question for me in the future. Okay. With that, I think we will then we'll then adjourn the May 19th Environmental Planning Commission meeting at 8:38 p.m. and see everyone in the fall. Thank you all, and
thank you.
All the best, Commissioner Schmeezing.
Yeah, congratulations again.
Congrats, Ellie.